Today I'm going to show you how to reconstruct the cuff of a canvas or denim jacket. We'll be repairing this Carhartt jacket for today. Hi, I'm AJ, and this is my series where I teach you how to repair, DIY, and upcycle clothing, because the most sustainable clothing is the clothing you already have, so we really need to learn how to take care of it better. For this tutorial, you will need scissors, a measuring tape, pins, and a needle. I recommend a thicker needle because it's going to be a thicker fabric that we're going to be going through. For this tutorial, I will be using a combination of hand sewing and machine sewing. You can do everything with just hand sewing though. You'll also need some scrap fabric that is a similar weight or style to the fabric of the jacket you're repairing. So aka you can see this has no stretch and that it's a similar feel to the jacket's material. If you're repairing something that's similar to a Carhartt jacket, you could actually take material from like a tote bag or from jeans and try to dye it to be the same color. My material actually comes from some canvas scrap from a pair of pants that I made that I then dyed with Rit dye in my bathtub yesterday. I'm gonna have to patch this fabric together to make a piece that's big enough to do the repair. I'm gonna take my seam ripper and I'm going to go along the bottom of the cuff and I'm gonna rip any seams there, as well as rip up this edge all the way to where the rip stops at the top. Now I have fully seam ripped the bottom hem, so the outer shell is detached from the inner cuff. And I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut the bottom part of the cuff, just the outer shell. Do not cut the inner part. Before I do that, to make sure that it's neat all the way around, I'm going to measure from 3 inches to the bottom cuff upwards. I'm going to make a couple marks around the whole cuff so that my cut is straight. So this is the inside of the cuff, and now we're gonna replace the outside. Now we are going to use the piece that we just cut off the cuff to make a pattern piece for the replacement. So grab some scrap paper, and I'm just taping it together because my paper is not quite long enough. Place this down, get it as flat as possible. Now that we have this shape, you are going to take a ruler or measuring tape and you are going to measure 1/2 inch around the curve for the whole entire thing. This is going to be your seam allowance. Now we will cut out the pattern piece. This is the piece of fabric we're going to use to make the cuff. So I'm going to place my pattern piece down on this and I'm going to trace it out. I'm going to take my scissors and cut that out. This side is our top and this side is our bottom. And this side we're looking at is the good side that's going to be facing outwards. So we're going to turn the outside face down. And then on the bottom, we're going to take a ruler. We're going to measure out that 1/2 inch and we're going to pre-iron that 1/2 inch down on this whole bottom curve. You want to make sure you press that nice and crisp. We're going to flip it so the inside is face down and we're going to fold it in half. We're going to put a pin in place to hold the two outer seams together. We're now going to take this over to the sewing machine and at the 1/2 inch mark, we're going to sew a straight line down. And then we're going to start seeing that this is turning into the new cuff. The new cuff we made inside out, and we have the jacket where the outer layer has been cut off. Now, for this step, we know that this folded edge is the bottom. So this is going to be the part that eventually lines up with the bottom hem of the sleeve. What we're going to do to get the cleanest finish possible is we're going to take the bottom end and we're going to turn it to face the wrong way. We're going to make sure that this seam lines up with where this seam of the jacket is. And what we're going to do is we're going to reach through this going the wrong way. We're going to gather the sleeve and we're going to pull the sleeve backwards onto the existing sleeve. You're going to have to do a little bit of finagling here to get this all through. And we're going to pull it all the way up till the two raw hems are meeting each other. Okay, we're then going to take some pins and we're going to pin all around this where the raw hems meet. It should now look something like this, and we're going to sew along this bottom edge of the two pieces. Now, I know where to pick and choose my battles, and this is a hot mess to sew on my machine, so I will be threading up a needle and hand stitching this. I'm going to use 2 layers of thread because I want it to be extra strong. So I'm going to go through both layers. I'm just going to do a back and forth standard stitch. So as you can see, I hand stitched the 2 pieces together. Take the top part of the cuff and we're going to pull this down. And now we're going to make sure the inner layer of the cuff lines up with the outer layer. And we're going to apply some pins around the outside and then do some top stitching to attach these 2 pieces. I decided to bring this over to my sewing machine to do some top stitching, but honestly think a hand stitch might have looked a little neater. And in the future, I should have changed out my sewing machine thread to be a darker color because I used white, so there is a little bit of a contrast with the top stitch. What we're doing now is we are attaching that top cuff that we made to the inner cuff of the jacket. And this is what the final result looks like. It's not a perfect match, but since we're doing the other side as well, it's gonna look like the jacket just has a contrast cuff on both sleeves. This tutorial was a little more complicated, so don't be afraid to leave any questions you have in the comments and I can show more.